Welcome to Rails Around York. Steel rails developed the West and brought this nation together. The railroad carried the freight and people to distant cities. In small towns across America, the station became the center of activity. It was the place to hear the latest news. Young people imagined faraway places as the trains passed by. The steam locomotive may be gone from the railroad, but modern diesel-electric locomotives are moving the freight on busy main lines. Come along on this Rails Around York as we look to the times past on the railroads, as well as the present on Rails Around York.
pictures out my pictures, so I try not to get something else.
Yeah, right.
Everybody thinks that way.
That's right. Try to live That's pretty solid.
I don't know if I can stand up there, can I?
Well, he ran up. Good shot.
field trip. For Tulsa. Yeah.
Here's the sower, Michael Guido of Meta, Georgia, with a seed for the garden of your heart.
The express train to Manchester, England left the station on time, but it stopped a mile down the track. The engine wasn't coupled onto the cars. Your faith is like that coupling that links the cars to the engine. It's not the coupling that pulls the cars, but the engine. And it's not your faith that saves, but the Christ in whom your faith is placed. Everyone has faith, but not everyone has faith in Christ. He's absolutely necessary and positively sufficient for salvation. So have faith in Christ the Lord.
A seed from the sower has originated from the studios of the Guido Evangelistic Association, Meta, Georgia.
special message for you from Pastor Kevin Trout of Bible Baptist Church.
Bible Baptist Church is a place where you can experience God's love in a personal way. If you'll make time to visit one of our services, we'll do our best to provide a wonderful and refreshing church experience for you and your dear family.
Today, as a part of our study of transportation, we're going to consider the question of railroads. Do you know the basic principle of railroads? It's a steel wheel. It runs on a steel rail. Friction is reduced to a minimum, and the grade is as near level as possible. Unfortunately, life is never that simple. Last year, the nation's railroads carried 2,618,000,000 tons of freight, 431 million passengers. In any operation that size, there will always be a great many problems. One problem that is of great importance to railroad men and of importance to every boy and girl here. And that's the question we're going to consider today.
Kids get deliberately standing in the
And you'd better send an ambulance, too, just to be on the safe side.
Nothing to worry about, ma'am. Just an emergency stop.
I just lost my balance.
Here, I'll get your bags.
All right, in the galley, Sam. How about the customer?
Glad to say nothing serious for you, Doctor. I do have a couple of bruises in this car. Let's get out of here.
What does it prove? What are they trying to prove, Paul, by doing a crazy thing like that?
Well, I don't know, but I'm certainly going to try to find out.
As a railroad police officer, Lieutenant Campbell must know hundreds of teachers, so I have to admit that I was pleased when he called me. I told him to come right on over.
And that's about how it happened. Sure, it's an extreme case. But Walter, if you could have seen the effect on the engineer, I don't imagine anybody knows the horrible feeling one gets when they see something ahead of them on the track, unless they've been right up in the cab and had it happen to them. Walter, what makes these boys and girls play on the railroad? Surely they know the dangers involved. Maybe that's it. Maybe they play there just for the thrill of it.
Well, I think, Paul, that the thrill is part of it, but every one of these boys and girls is different. They have all sorts of reasons for doing these things. Some of them are just plain curious. And of course, there are quite a lot that just have nothing else to do. But I think you'll find the majority of the youngsters who are on the railroad property are there because they like it,
Like it? With some of the stunts they do? Placing things on the tracks, stoning passenger trains and cabin cars, shooting up signals? Is that the way you show someone you like something?
Those boys and girls are definitely the exception. Most of them want to be a part of it. They'd like to ride in the engine. They'd like to ride in the cabin car at the end of the train. They'd like to get up in the tower and see how everything works.
Yes, and the railroad knows that, but of course we can't.
I know. But, Paul, I've been in this business a long time. In this kind of a problem, you're not going to accomplish very much without getting the youngsters' cooperation. Now, there are various ways of doing that: student councils, discussions, speeches in schools, and so on. But regardless of the method, you've got two basic problems. One is to show these youngsters the dangers that are involved in the railroad trespassing and get their cooperation. The other is to find a way to satisfy their interest and their curiosity about these things without their going on your property.
That's all?
That's all.
I gave a lot of thought to that discussion, especially the idea of finding a substitute for coming on our property. I talked to some of the executives, and I talked around the system to get opinions from men on the ground. It was then that we got just the idea, just the answer for putting boys and girls in the cab of an engine or in a cabin car, and giving them a job, too. And this is it, this picture that you are watching, because we are going to take you for a trip on the railroad. We're going to show you things you couldn't possibly get to see by trespassing. And we're also going to show you some things that will open your eyes. What do you think we ought to show them first, Bob?
Well, let's test their ears, just to see how good they are at hearing a train coming.
Good enough. Now, in a moment, you'll hear a train coming. And I want you to yell, "Here it comes," the moment you hear it. Not when you see it, only when you hear it. Now, ready? Listen. Did you hear that train? I did not say which way it was coming, and trains don't either. Do you think you could have gotten out of the way in time? Maybe. But a smart railroad man isn't interested in maybe. That's why he always stays off the track, as much as his duties will permit. He knows that a train may run on any track, in any direction, at any time. You see, a railroad man considers safety his #1 job. This man looks carefully in both directions before he starts to cross. He never steps on a rail. We have safety rules for every department and every operation. A railroad man respects the safety rules, because he knows that they not only protect him, but protect others, too. There's just no question about it. A good railroader is a safe railroader. Now we'd like to show you how we make up a freight train. It's done here, in a classification yard. This is the top of the hump, as it's called. Cars from arriving trains roll down the hump and are switched into various tracks to make up new trains, each headed for a different city. At busy locations, a modern railroad uses retarders to control the speed of cars coming off the hump. In a yard like this, you will find all kinds of scientific apparatus to speed traffic. Everything from tape recorders for quick communication to this intricate switching system, backed by thousands of electrical devices. As the operator sets the pressure control switches, the retarders grip the wheels of the moving car and release it at just the right speed. Each car moves through 3 retarders before entering the yard tracks. Precision judgment is required of the operator. At the first retarder, he estimates the rolling qualities of the car, then selects a pressure. The way in which the car reacts tells him how to set the second retarder. By this time, the car should be rolling properly. If not, he still has the third retarder with which to make a final correction. The destination and track for each car has been recorded on an electronic device, so that the moment one car clears into the yard, these lights change to tell the operator how to set the switches for the next. We just can't think of a better example of the increasing role that science plays in railroading today. The trouble is that while science can help us control free-rolling cars, we still have no control over you. Nothing to tell us that you are playing on a boxcar. You might think that because there is no locomotive in sight, a standing car cannot move. Why learn the hard way? It's a fact that you can never tell when a railroad car is going to move. Thinking of crawling under a car? Watch out! Railroad men go around the cars and keep well in the clear as protection against any sudden movement. Now, suppose you are up on a car and you don't fall off when it moves. Well, you might keep going, and then you would be trapped on top. What would you do then? And if there was a tunnel ahead, I'm sure you would know it in time. And would it clear you? Here's another dangerous possibility. It could mean a cold, hungry trip across the country. Trespassing on the railroad won't get you a ride in the cab of a diesel. Not because the engineer wouldn't like to give you a ride, but there's a rule against carrying outsiders in the engine without special permission. So here's what it looks like from the cab of a diesel. And here's how you run it. This is the throttle. If the wheels slip, a light comes on. The engineman applies sand, and off he goes. An engineman has a fascinating job. Except for one thing. You guessed it. Take my word for it. The sight of boys and girls playing on the tracks, or even near them, is enough to make an engineman old before his time. Did you know that a diesel really runs by electricity? Here you see the diesel engine and a yard switcher. Behind it is a generator. Each wheel is driven by an electric motor. All this other equipment helps to run the engine, too. Circuit breakers, compressors, amplifiers, automatic firefighting equipment, even a boiler like a steam engine, but now only for train and engine heat. Road signals are duplicated in the cab. If the signal changes to a more restricting one, a whistle blows. It continues to blow until the engineman acknowledges it.
Approach medium. Approach medium.
This cab signal is a safety device which protects crews and passengers. But unfortunately, there is no signal which can tell an engineman that you are walking on the track around the next curve. If those boys by any chance are looking for a steam engine, they'll be disappointed, because today most of them are here in our scrapyard, replaced by the more efficient diesels. But for all their dirt and smoke and back-breaking work, many old-timers feel that some of the romance of railroading died with steam. So now for a special treat, possible only in this film. Engine house foreman, bring that locomotive back to life. Wonderful hissing power in those engines. They needed only a touch of the throttle to move right out from under you. Fast train on a grade, such as here at the Horseshoe Curve, it was all you could do to keep up enough steam when firing by hand. Of course, nearly all our steam engines were eventually equipped with automatic stokers, which made the job easier and safer, too. Those were the days, all right. For romance, anyway. But we doubt if either passengers or crews would want to change back from the comfort and safety of modern diesel operation. That's progress. And to keep pace with progress today, we are experimenting with new lightweight trains. This one is pulled by its own diesel, though at the moment it is running in electrified territory. Incidentally, did you know that these wires carry 11,000 volts? They are a deadly hazard to trespassers, and you should never, never go near wires or substations. The experimental trains are the fastest yet. That means you have even less time than ever to get out of the way if you happen to be walking on the track. At this instant, this train is a quarter of a mile away, but it takes only 10 seconds to be on top of you. And that's just one of many reasons why you should always heed the safety devices and signs at grade crossings. Before you even reach the crossing, there is usually a round sign like this. At the crossing itself, you will see what we call the crossbuck. There also may be flashing lights, crossing gates, even warning bells. Notice the sign which says how many tracks there are. This is very important, for there may be a train coming from the opposite direction which you cannot see. Now let's look inside a cabin car. It's got bunks and a small stove for cooking at the end of the run. The flagman, brakeman, and conductor ride here. But a cabin car isn't just a place for eating and sleeping. The cupola on top has an important purpose. By looking ahead along the train, the crew can be sure that everything is running satisfactorily. If for some reason the train must be stopped, the conductor calls the engineman on the radio telephone. And the rear brakeman or flagman throws out a fusee as an extra precaution to warn any oncoming train. While waiting to proceed again, the flagman must walk back far enough to protect his train. He must stay back there until the signal to return is given by the engineman. A trainman gets to see a lot of country on his job, and much of it is rich in America's history. Here you see one of the early canals, which were a major form of transportation before the railroads. At last, the signal comes. To protect the train while he is returning to the cabin car, the flagman lights another fusee. It will burn for 5 minutes, warning any approaching train. But you might be placing the lives of the crew in danger, as well as the lives of passengers in a following train, if you were to steal that fusee. No one wants to cause a thing like that. So for the sake of others, leave those fusees alone. A torpedo is another device we use to ensure the safety of trains. 2 of them are strapped to the rail. But when a railroad man puts something on the track, it's to protect lives. You should never, never put anything on the track, no matter how small. Even if these rocks could not derail an engine. What about a track car? If your father worked for the railroad, would you want him to be hurt because you put something on the track? For that matter, how would you like to be hurt yourself because someone threw a rock at your train? I hope you can understand now why the railroad is no place to play. Why we have to ask you not to trespass for your own safety and for the safety of others. Of course, there's much more we could show you. We have films on the maintenance of equipment, track, and structures. Train operation. The new truck train service. Our Boxcar Navy. The station department. It's quite a business, railroading, and safety is the first part of it. You just haven't begun to see the railroad in this short time. But believe me, this is the way to see it.
You agree with that? I certainly hope you do. Of course, some of you may ask, isn't there anything we can do around a railroad? Yes, as a matter of fact, there is. For one thing, you can protect younger brothers and sisters who just haven't any idea of the dangers involved. We can protect these fellows, too. You certainly wouldn't want your dog hurt because he followed you onto the railroad track. We can protect our, well, you know, sometimes even parents forget. And we can learn more about the railroad. Learn the danger spots in our community. And also learn the safe places from which to watch the operation. It's easy to think of other interesting projects. A safety rule book for boys and girls, study of signals, or the forming of a model railroad club. That's just the beginning of many things we can do. And you'll find that wherever possible, representatives of the railroad are anxious to be of help in any way that they can. There you have it, the free ticket to safety. Hope you've enjoyed the ride.
Thank you for watching Rails Around York. Call 843-7722 with your comments.
Good night.
Rails Around York is a Good Day production.